It's kind of weird to think about nowadays, but Overwatch was kind of game-changing for the video games industry when it came out in 2016, but I'd argue all that game-changing was for the worse. People still play the game, yes, but it did influence a lot of negative tropes in the industry, like $60 games including free-to-play like microtransactions and pushing games as a service, aka the gas genre, into popularity with greedy executives. A genre built on making video games feel like a full-time job through limited time, fear of missing out events, and level-up systems that would force you to grind for 7 hours every day. And that's being generous. The blowout success of Fortnite's Battle Royale mode made it an even more lucrative model for a lot of developers to pursue. But there's a major problem with everyone trying to hop on the games as a service bandwagon. With how many players need to be playing them and how much time they consume, only so many of these games can exist at the market at the same time, and we've already seen games both free-to-play and retail shut down in a few years, sometimes less than a year after coming out, with the only big names like Apex Legends and Destiny surviving even with the bullshit behind the scenes with those projects. Not helped by ballooning budgets of massive video games all over the world, and these games as a service have the potential to be money pits. And one game in particular has succeeded in wasting a lot of money, being Sony Interactive Entertainment and the now defunct Firewalk Studios, Concord. First off, that's a terrible name for this game. It tells me nothing about it from a face value, which is kind of a problem with a lot of these gas games. Concord apparently means peace and unity, but that's kind of ironic in a game with only PvP modes, which kinda explains a lot of where this game starts failing. I'm sure there were developers at Firewalk who wanted to change the name, but reportedly, the development environment around this game wouldn't allow such changes as it was surrounded by a culture of quote-unquote toxic positivity, with no constructive criticism allowed. The heads thought just because they had a talented team of fellows all throughout the Western video game industry, from companies like Bungie to BioWare, that it would just come together because the team was too good to fail. This is poor leadership in so many ways. Trusting your team to put something together with what you give them is great, but that trust is contradicted by the inability to take feedback from the team and come to compromises. This is not helped by the fact that the higher-ups at Sony and Firewalk wanted to create a big, multimedia, Star Wars-like franchise right off the gate, which always spells disaster. These guys haven't even shipped the game and we're already thinking about spin-offs. I think it's fine to think big if something is a success, but keep that in your back pocket when you don't know if this is going to turn out well. I want you to remember all this for later. So, Concord was properly revealed to the public in 2023 with the most boring teaser trailer to ever exist. I mean, it's a new property. Showing little glimpses of the character's headquarters when we haven't even seen the characters is not going to excite anyone, and thus nobody cared to make a big stink about it. When the game got properly revealed in a State of Play presentation in 2024, Sony's attempts at Nintendo Direct reveals for their games, we actually saw what the game was gonna be, and then everyone made a big stink about it. This cinematic trailer showcased a ragtag group of space dudes doing space dude stuff, with the most basic humor you can imagine. Like, I know people cringe at this stuff, but to me, it doesn't even get a reaction. The dialogue, both in the exposition and character banter side, is just white noise to me. And this was the opening 10 minutes of the State of Play. This trailer kept going and going, making everyone who might have been slightly interested in the game get annoyed because they were here to see multiple games at the State of Play, not just one game. It's been a big issue with all these Nintendo Direct-like presentations that aren't from Nintendo, where instead of packing a lot of stuff in a quick and exciting time frame, leaving the audience to go out and learn more if they're invested in a certain title, they spend so much time on one title, alienating the wide audience these presentations pull. When I first watched Concord's reveal, it bored me until it showed me it was a live service multiplayer game, and then I was pissed because of the oversaturation of the genre. The devs did mention they would give out story details and cutscenes weekly like a TV show when the game came out, but that's kinda lame. Instead of having an honest-to-God campaign or making fun promotional shorts like the early days of Team Fortress 2 or Overwatch, you're expecting everyone to immediately be hooked, spend money, and wait week after week to learn more about this world. Not to mention, this is another painfully naked attempt by Sony to make games prestige in the same way movies and TV are, instead of using video games as a medium to tell the story. It's separating the gaming and the story, and I don't like that. And then everyone teared into how lame the characters looked. Instead of feeling like these larger-than-life, living, breathing inhabitants of a sci-fi world, they just look like dudes in makeup and costumes because of the photorealism direction the game's graphics went in. I think there could be a charm to a game where the characters look like actors after hours in the makeup chair, but that doesn't feel intentional here, and that's not great. What does not help is that all the playable characters felt like archetypes to be filled without a twist or oomph to get people to pay attention to them. I don't know if they went with the first draft designs without time to polish them further, or if executive meddling and focus testing got in the way to make them more bland over time, but either way, there's a reason Concord's characters have spawned lots of videos critiquing and finding out what went wrong with the game's design language. Maybe there would be more to this game when it came out, and we got to see the week-to-week cutscenes and get our hands on the gameplay, but with this project bringing little to no pizzazz in an oversaturated genre, why should the audience care to spend money and learn more when there's more safe and reliable options out there? First impressions are important, and this was a terrible one. So Concord was released a few months later, and nobody cared. It got middling reviews from critics, which by game journalism standards means you screwed up the pooch bad. Both the early betas and the full game were not well populated with players, especially for an expensive PlayStation-backed title, so between the low impact of its launch to wildly negative buzz, PlayStation decided to just give up. With 8 years in development, millions of dollars spent, Concord was gone in 2 weeks after it released, and everyone got refunded. Some may argue that they could have improved it during the holiday season with updates or even make it free to play later down the line, but with such low player numbers, it was probably better to get this Shutdown song and dance over with now. You want to know the real kicker about all this? The same day Concord shut down its servers, another game from that State of Play conference came out. A game that was much more hyped out than Concord. A single-player 3D platformer adventure game by a highly respected Sony subsidiary. Astrobot. It sold well, got glowing reviews from everyone, and is hailed as one of the best video games to be released in 2024. It's so funny to see Sony commit themselves to the live service demon, only for that to blow up in their face big time, and rely on a polished 3D platformer like Grandma used to make them to get back its audience. What's not as funny is Sony shutting down Firewalk Studios, causing more innocent people in the games industry to be laid off for stupid decisions out-of-touch executives made. Capitalism sucks. And arguably, that's one of the biggest failures in video game history. Nobody can play it anymore as the servers do not exist, and Sony removed any and all data from it from digital storefronts. All we have now are YouTube videos, both from PlayStation and other gaming creators, archiving this strange failure. However, another piece of Concord will survive. Remember how I said to keep in mind that the head devs wanted Concord to be a multimedia franchise? Well, the animated Amazon Prime video game anthology show, Secret Level, produced an episode about Concord that will still be coming out in December of 2024, even after the game and its studio no longer exists. I have no idea if it will be a good or bad episode, but its sheer existence is the comedic cherry on top of this disaster of a Sunday. And with that, we have concluded the tale of failure that was Concord. With Sony still saying they want to make more live service games in the future, I doubt anything will be learned from this game, despite how much of a waste of everyone's effort and money it was. More talented developers are going to be rushed to make sloppy games, later get fired for it when it all blows up, and the cycle will repeat again. I guess if I have to leave you with a moral of the story, go play Astrobot. It's a well-designed, great game. Also, capitalism sucks.